And we are live here on the Off the Mic Sports Network, live from Los Angeles after what was dubbed the game of the year between Ohio State and Texas. Really the first big game of the entire season. And, all of this build up, all of this, hoopla surrounding Arch Manning and, his big time debut for the Texas Longhorns, although he had started 2 games, but this was his first game as a full time starter. And let me start off first by saying this. Saw him at SEC Media Days, covered him at SEC Media Days. The kid is incredibly impressive. He really is. He really is. He's very polished. Very impressive young man. But I can only judge you so far off the field before you get on the field, and the hype did not match the play did not match the hype for Arch Manning today. I know people are going to say, well, he made a couple of nice throws there at the end, and hey, they were in position to potentially win the game, to tie or maybe eventually win the game. But if you guys take out that drive that was 4 plays, 60 yards in 45 seconds, and they scored with just under 3.5 minutes to go. So if you guys do the math there, what is that, 56.5 minutes, Texas did not score. That was the first time they'd been shut out through 3 quarters in 10 years. They were on their way, if not for that drive, for being the first time they had been shut out in 11 years. This is the number 1 team in the country. Arch Manning goes out there, and this is just, to me, it's just a flat out egg. And, I don't know what you guys think, if there's Texas fans in here who want to talk about it as well. The big conversation point here is and listen, here's another indication for you guys. Arch Manning was the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy at halftime. He dropped out of it, and it's Garrett Nussmeier and Cade Klubnik, who ironically are playing each other tonight. Arch did not look good. He did not look good out there. He was skipping throws. There was a couple of really horrendous bad misses. Like he threw one low on that final drive, and then also he was fading away, and he threw it with way too much touch up high, and his wide receiver couldn't make the catch, and he probably would have gained a ton of yards had that ball been thrown correctly. So credit to Ohio State, first of all. I think Ohio State's defense, I think we vastly underrated Matt Patricia, who is a Super Bowl winning coordinator, did not really do much as a head coach of the Detroit Lions, but he showed out today. And they had some pieces there, like obviously Sonny Styles and, and obviously Caleb Downs, but this defense showed out, man. Before that last drive, they were holding them to under 250 yards of offense. I'll actually have the stats up here in a second. So, Texas had 336 yards of total offense. I mean, Ohio State's total offense was not great either, but to me, Julian Sayin actually looked like the better quarterback. He didn't have the better numbers because Arch Manning had to, play from behind. They were down 14-0 near the end of that game. And it just, to me, what sticks out about this game is just Julian Sayin looked much more ready for the moment. He didn't look jittery. He didn't look, rattled at all. Arch looked like he had, and I think this is partly the fault of the media, that we crowned this kid too soon. We did. Now, the question becomes, coming out of this, because like I said, Julian Sayin was the number 1 prospect a year after Arch. And, we'll see. He also had some weapons, and, both these teams were shuffling their offensive line. But in terms of Arch Manning, is he a bust? The answer to that question is I don't know. But there's going to be a lot of questions for Texas moving forward the rest of the season, because this was supposed to be the banner game. Everybody thought, oh, Texas is a better team. There was a couple of people that, I thought said Texas was going to, I think it was Paul Feinbaum said Texas was going to win big. And that Arch Manning's the best prospect since Tim Tebow. I think he's probably going to eat it. But let's look at the schedule here for a second. So they're going to get a chance to really get back on track. They got San Jose State next week, UTEP, Sam Houston State. So that's a joke of a non-conference. But then they get Florida, Oklahoma, Kentucky, which Kentucky's Mississippi State, Vanderbilt. They're at home, so Vanderbilt. But then they go to Georgia, and then they have Texas A&M at the end of the season. This is listen, I still think that potentially this could round into form for Texas, but this was not a great start for Arch Manning. This was not a great opening act to inspire confidence in your fan base. And I think a lot of people overlooked the fact that for 2 years that this guy was sitting on the bench and he got spot duty. For 2 years, this guy got spot duty and was not able to eclipse Quinn Ewers, who was a 7th-round draft pick in the NFL. And people didn't want. Yet Texas continued to trot him out there throughout the course of the last 2 years. So some of this is on the media for anointing this kid too soon and, basing it way too much off of a couple of games last year. Because the reality is, he had not, before today, Arch Manning had not thrown one pass on the road. He had not thrown one pass on the road. Like, that's insane for a guy who has been in college for 2 years. He's had the luxury to sit behind and watch. He's got a great play caller in Steve Sarkisian, and I have a lot of respect for Steve Sarkisian. But this was just a lot of this was rust. A lot of this, I think, was overhype. And I think one thing that I hope does not get overlooked is this Ohio State defense, despite losing a litany of people and losing their coordinator in Jim Knowles, is really fucking good. Ohio State is going to be near the forefront of college football. And I think the bigger story that I think is going to get thrown underneath the radar, because Arch is going to be the easiest topic to talk about through this whole course of this entire weekend, because of his last name. And obviously, considering he was the most recognizable name in the sport going into the season, SEC team, Texas, they were number 1 in the country. It's 1 versus 3. It's the big noon game. So all this attention on him. But I think we need to give credit to Ohio State as well. And we need to give credit. And I said it off the top. Matt Patricia had an exceptional game plan. And I'll leave out the last drive or two because usually in 2 minutes, like you're playing up tempo. And Arch made some good throws near the end. It's gonna be interesting. Look, it's one game. I don't think by any means that this is going to be like Arch Manning is going to be an undrafted prospect, but I think this is more of a reflection of what we have talked about, Chief. This is more of a reflection of what people had talked about when, the discussion came out that Archie Manning basically said he was staying in school for another year. And that conversation kind of got put to bed when Arch basically said, I don't even know what he was talking about. This is more of a reflection that Arch Manning is going to need time. If we're going to, do I think that he will ultimately be drafted? Sure. It would be a colossal and catastrophic failure if this guy is not a draft pick, because that means that he ain't any good. And at that point, you're like, I don't know what's going on. So, anyway, get your chats in, super chats, everything here. We're doing a live post show. I've mostly done these for wrestling, but this was the biggest game in college football, maybe one of the biggest games of the year. But let me know what you guys thought about the game. If you're an Ohio State fan, if you're a Texas fan, whatever. If you're just a college football fan, you want to talk to me about Cade Klubnik and Garrett Nussmeier, because I'm really excited to see that game. Both those guys are studs, and I think those guys, if anything, absolutely loved what they saw in this game, because right now, whoever wins tonight and whoever plays better, I'm assuming that's by process, whoever wins tonight is going to be in really good position to hold. And if it's Clemson and Cade Klubnik looks really good, Clemson may go undefeated, because Clemson is in the ACC, which is not very good. I could see, Cade Klubnik moving to the top of college football. Also, Drew Aller could be an interesting one. If you're the Saints, you absolutely hate this because you were probably dreaming of the possibility of Arch Manning. I don't foresee. So the question that you asked, Chief, is like looking at what you saw, is Manning getting drafted? Um, if he is, it ain't this year. I will tell you that right now. I do not foresee Arch Manning ultimately being the pick for I don't see him coming out this year. Like this is like that's gonna probably be. I mean, listen, they got to play Georgia at the end of the year. That defense is gonna be loaded too. So if you think Ohio State's gonna bother you in the first game of the season, you might be seeing deer in headlights later in the season because you got Florida, you got Oklahoma. Like once you get into the SEC, like this was a big test to see where he is, a real litmus test, real litmus test. And look, did he make some good throws near the end of that game? Sure. But man, like the interception was bad. He didn't throw with any anticipation. He was very rattled. He was very jittery. He moved very quickly off of reads. Like it didn't feel like he had real command of anything. And I think some of this falls on Sark because Sark is supposed to be the coach and the quarterback whisperer. And he just, to me, in every single situation where you could be trying to set up your quarterback to be successful, he kind of failed. And then when they started getting it going late in that game, that was 2 minute when they were desperate. And he made a really great throw to Livingstone, the I think the redshirt freshman wide receiver, and it was a great throw and catch. It was almost not a catch, and I give credit. He made a great throw to Endries before the 2 minute, and then like I said, you basically had two play. I think they ran a play, and then second and third down were just bad misses. Like he threw one low and outside. And then on third down, he's fading away. He throws it way too high. And if the receiver's able to, I think it might have been Wingo. I can't remember who it was. But that gets missed, and there was nobody there. Like Texas could have potentially been set up to go down and score. And that's a bad miss. And that was really schemed up well. So Sark put him in a good position there. But at the same time, you're looking around at this, and you're like, what the fuck? And in the throw to before the 2 minutes, like, where the hell was this the whole game? Some of this is Ohio State's defense. Absolutely. I 100% believe that this is Ohio State. Ohio State is a much better team than we expected. Like everybody was ready to write them off. Listen, Jeremiah, the one thing, and when I made my predictions earlier this morning, and I'll get to your comment in a second, Chief, because you're absolutely right. I actually totally forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, for a guy who's been there for 2 years, he should have known. Yeah, there's no excuses. But yeah, with Ohio State, man, like one thing that like everybody was just ready to write them off. They had I think 14 players that got drafted, bunch of first round picks, a lot of their defense, Jack Sawyer, who was there, Will Howard, who was there. But I said this in my predictions video. I think they had the two best players on the field in Jeremiah Smith and in Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs. Those two guys, and those are the two of the best players in college football. And so that had to matter here. And I think a lot of people were just overlooking that. People were like, oh, Jim Knowles isn't there. That's a big loss for them. He goes to Penn State. Matt Patricia, who, really hasn't done much since his time with the Patriots. He flamed out as a jack of all trades coordinator in Philadelphia. He flamed out as head coach of the Detroit Lions. But people forget this guy's a pretty brilliant defensive mind. And, like the offense wasn't perfect. I mean, they had some drop passes. Jeremiah Smith had 6 catches for 43 yards. Max Clare, they had a big drop early in the game. Look, it wasn't perfect. I mean, the running game is going to be a work in progress without Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. I mean, only had 77 yards rushing in this game as a team. And C.J. Donaldson had the one touchdown, one of the big touchdowns in this game. And then Carnell Tate, obviously the big catch that really was the difference in this game. But yeah, I mean, it's just, and then like I said, the other piece of this whole thing is like, no quietly throughout the offseason, everybody's talking about Arch Manning. Everybody's talking about all these other teams. Ohio State's like, yeah, Ohio State's number 3 in the country, Julian Sayin. And we're like, okay, we don't know much about this kid because he was there last year, Alabama transfer, was recruited by Nick Saban, thought very highly of, but we didn't know a lot about him. And I got to tell you, man, like, even though and I said this earlier on, even though Julian Sayin didn't have the gaudy numbers, like, he looked more poised, he looked more composed, he looked like he missed a big throw on the fourth down early in the game where he could have gone to Jeremiah Smith up top, and that was a big miss that he didn't see him, and Max Clare should have caught it. But again, like I said, this guy, made some impressive plays. I think there was one play where he was running backwards and basically threw an incredible completion. Like, the touchdown was a good looking throw. It was a better catch by Carnell Tate, but Ohio State, I think we overlooked them a little bit in this spot. Yes, obviously them being at home, but everybody was kind of gawking at the idea of, Ohio State's favored in this game. Why? They lost everybody. I mean, but Igmanosin, Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, they brought back some defensive guys, Hinsman on the offensive line. They got Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs, like I said. Carnell Tate's back there. Like, this is a good team. For them to get this win, they only scored 14 points. Their offense didn't look particularly great. They didn't run. The running game is going to be a problem, and that's going to be something that they got to address. But for them to get this win, and like I said, I think in a lot of respects, even though the numbers don't match up, because like I said, I'm kind of taking out those last 2 drives for Arch Manning because I've been just like this, all this hype that's around Arch Manning, and then Julian Sayin just under the radar. Like I said, he just looked like the guy that we were expecting Arch Manning to be. Wouldn't you guys agree to that? Like, he looked like the guy that we expected Arch Manning to be ultimately. And, it's unfortunate that, the way that social media works, that we're just going to go past judgment on this guy, Arch right away. Because listen, when you're the quarterback at Texas, I mean, Vince Young was over there, Colt McCoy, who's been making the media rounds and is in media now. When you are the quarterback of the university, Sam Ellinger, obviously Quinn Ewers recently, when you are the quarterback of the University of Texas, you have a target on your back. And it's added even more target on his back when he is the nephew of Peyton and Eli. He's the son of Cooper. He's the grandson of Archie. Like, football's in his blood. And like I said, this kid said all the right things at SEC Media Days. Every single right thing. Just incredibly polished, incredibly impressive, not deflective of anything. He answered every question the right way and just, really came across impressive. And I was like, man, it would be really great if he could deliver. But if you were one of these foolish fans who walked into this game thinking that Arch Manning was going to go throw for 250, 300 yards and 3 touchdowns at the shoe in his first start on the road, you're crazy. You're crazy. But to be fair, that's what the media drummed this up to be, that this guy was the greatest thing since sliced bread. So the Paul Feinbaums of the world and all these people who were acting like Arch Manning was the greatest gift to college football need to slow the fuck down. And that's why I think this is going to register a little bit differently, and a lot of people are going to immediately anoint him a bust. Based off what I saw today, this guy is not at the level, of being considered a Heisman contender. And he absolutely should not go to the NFL, no matter how this finishes. And because like I said, this is going to be, he'll get better. He will get better. But you still got Georgia, you still got you still got Florida, you still got Oklahoma, you still got Texas A&M. Like, you've got all of these teams. Like, those are 4 ranked teams on your schedule. You got Vandy. Vandy's got a very accomplished defensive coach in Clark Lee. Like, it's not going to get any easier. Like, the next 3 games are going to be a joke. I think I read you those games off in a second. I'll go back to that in a second here. I'll go back to read that again. It's just, listen. So, their next biggest game coming up on the schedule isn't until October 4th against Florida, and that's in the Swamp. So good luck there, going to the Swamp. But then you also have Oklahoma the next week at home, or not at home. That's Red River. and Oklahoma's got a great quarterback in John Mateer, and then November 15th against Georgia. Good luck with that. But yeah, it's San Jose State. Next week you've got San Jose State, who actually lost at home to Central Michigan, so that was a little bit of a problem. UTEP and then Sam Houston State. So yeah, they're gonna definitely. I'd be stunned if they're not 3-1 going into that Florida game. But this was not a great start to the entire thing. But he's just not ready. He's just not ready to play in the NFL. He's not. Like, it's and any one of you Texas fans who were foolish enough to believe that, it's false hype, because I think we need to, put more stock in what was going on here at Texas the last 2 years. Quinn Ewers is fine, but the NFL told you what he was. He's a 7th-round pick by the Dolphins. Probably not going to start ever in the NFL. He's probably going to be a career backup. That guy started over this guy for 2 years. 2 years. The almighty Arch Manning. And Quinn Ewers was able to start over this guy for 2 years. Yes, Arch got those 2 starts in last year, and he looked okay, but it was against a bunch of it was against I think it was a lower tier SEC team, and then I think it was an FCS or like a non-conference opponent. So I don't know what you guys were expecting. I really don't know what you guys were expecting in this game. Were you expecting him to go out there and beat Peyton Manning? Were you expecting him to go out there? Like, what? Really? Are we crazy? You guys crazy? Like, it's just, to me, like, this wasn't that surprising. I think what was so glaring to me was how, in so many different fundamental points of the game, he failed. Like, he missed what are considered somewhat layup throws. Or if you're just a 5-star heralded prospect like you are, you should be able to make it. Like those second and third down on that final drive, you've got to make those plays. Like, you've got to at least hit that. I mean, I understand he had pressure, but still, like, if he layers that a little bit more, that's a catch. And that's potentially, I don't know where the defense was, but he could have picked up a ton of yards and probably gotten them into a chance to score and potentially, tie or win the game. But like, the other part of this, and I haven't even talked about this in, doing 22 minutes of this, they were horrible in the red zone. They were horrible in the red zone. A fourth down run that didn't happen. Like, let me get back to the drive chart here for a second. Bear with me, guys. I'm kind of looking at the play-by-play chart for everything. But yeah, so they had they turned it over on downs early on when they turned, and then just look, yeah. So they went 15 plays, 70 yards in the third quarter. And then, 13 plays, 76 yards. And, they get inside the 10 there, and they can't convert. Like, if you can't convert in the red zone in general, or even the low red zone twice, when it's a 14-7 game and you're the number 1 team in the country, that is a big litmus test of saying, okay, how far along are you? And in those key points of the game, Arch Manning failed. Did Steve Sarkisian kind of failed? And, because maybe the reality of the situation is this: they don't trust this kid enough to, really have enough command of the offense. Yes, is some of their, one of their wide receivers, their transfers, Mosley from Stanford. He wasn't great, or he wasn't available in this game. So I think I'll say slow down, but at the same time, there is definitely red flags after seeing what happened. There's definitely some red flags. And if I'm a Texas fan, I'm definitely concerned. I'm definitely concerned about the direction of this program, because, like I said, it's not going to get any easier in the SEC. They do avoid Alabama, so that's kind of a breath of fresh air. But you still got to go play Florida. Florida's got a good quarterback, DJ Lagway. You've got Red River against Oklahoma. John Mateer is in Oklahoma's going to be desperate this year. You've got Georgia. You've got Texas A&M. So it's not going to get easier for this guy. He'll get better, but at the same time, like, I'm a little worried about, like, the long-term outlook for this guy. And, if you think about it for a second, if you're the Manning family and you're watching this, you have to convince yourselves that he's got to stay in school. Like this shouldn't even be a debate at this point. I I would be flabbergasted if Arch Manning declares for the 2026 NFL draft. He would have to have a all-time turnaround level of progression over the course of this season. But the reality is this, I think this was his third college start, if I'm not mistaken. I think this was his third college start. This is his third year of college. So you mean to tell me what he could start another 10, 15 games potentially, like depending on how long to see. I can't. I've lost track. I think it's 12, and then you would go 13 if you play a conference championship, and then obviously you potentially have to play what 3 or 4 more depending on where you are in the standings of the college football playoff. That I don't think that's nearly enough for him, and I don't think anybody really was looking at it because of his last name, and it's just a bunch of misses, a bunch of, failures in the red zone, and that's why they lost this game. He was the reason why they lost. Ohio State's defense had a lot to say about it too, but there was some throws that were there that Arch could have easily made, and this could have been a different conversation at the end of this game. Like I was ready to talk about this at the end of the third quarter, and Arch made it interesting with that drive with 3.5 minutes to go. But they had, like, guys, for 56.5 minutes, Texas did not score. This was the first time they'd been held scoreless in a decade. They were on their way to being shut out for the first time in 11 years. Like, this was not acceptable. And if you're a Texas fan, you need to be angry and you need to be concerned because all of this hype and all of this hoopla, I understand. They had to replace a bunch of their offensive linemen, losing Matthew Golden to the NFL, losing Gunnar Helm to the NFL. They lost pieces to this offense, and they're going to have to figure it out. But Sark is a smart enough guy. Obviously they ran into a really just a nightmare of an opponent to start for your first game on the road going in front of 100,000 in the shoe. But, Ohio State wins 14-7. I think Julian Sayin, despite the numbers, outplayed Arch. Arch made some nice plays, but he's got a long way to go. He really does. And if you're one of these people out there who, is a big Arch Manning truther like the Paul Feinbaums of the world, or, thinks that this guy's the best guy since Tim Tebow and he's going to change the course of SEC football, this was not a good look for you. Like I said, I was impressed by the kid. I thought he presented himself very well. He said all the right things, but he's got a lot to work on. And this was not the greatest start to the college football season for the Texas Longhorns. That they start out 0-1, and we'll see what happens moving forward. About a minute and a half left here before I'm going to sign off. Chief, thanks for being active here in the comments. I know a lot of people are kind of just sort of watching and sort of seeing what I'm saying. And, you can watch the replay after the fact of what's been going on. I'm going to go watch some of the other games that are going on today. Obviously, Clemson and LSU is going to be a big talking point. I think, like I said, if you weren't paying attention earlier in the video, I think Clemson LSU now becomes a big talking point for who's the front runner in the Heisman, whether it be Garrett Nussmeier or Cade Klubnik. I think those are if you're talking about winners, obviously Ohio State winning the game and, their defense and Matt Patricia, but external people from this game, I think Cade Klubnik and Garrett Nussmeier have to feel really great that, Arch Manning did not play well in this game, because now it opens up the betting books like, BetMGM and, DraftKings immediately after the first half, they dropped Arch Manning off the grid in terms of being a contender for the Heisman. And it's those two guys, Cade Klubnik and Garrett Nussmeier. But anyway, Arch Manning, I don't even know if I actually read his line in this game, which is kind of insane. So Arch goes 17-30, 170, one touchdown, one interception, it's just it up until that last drive, it was not the greatest. The last two drives, it was really just a pretty bad performance. But I'm not ready to call him a bust. I just think we should have been expecting this more out of Arch Manning. So anyway, Appreciate y'all tuning in. Thanks to everybody for jumping on here. We'll have more coming here on the channel, wrestling and some sports content as well. But I wanted to go live because this is a big story and have this going on live as everything